Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and we are live at 83weeks.com. And we are joined, of course, by the hostess with the mostest. Wait, did I say that right? Ladies and gentlemen, the Hall of Famer himself, your friend and mine, Eric Bischoff. Eric, how are you, sir?
Brother, I am blissful. There you go. That describes it really, really well. Blissful.
What's got you in such a good mood today?
So much, honestly. But that's a different show. But this is just so much good stuff going on. And physically, I feel great. I promise I won't dive into a lot of detail in this, but since you kind of opened the door, not even knowing you did, but I was hoping you would. I'm on the carnivore diet, right? And I'm having a blast with it. I've been on it for about a year, a little over a year. But I blocked off 90 days before my birthday. My birthday is May 27th. So I just worked backwards. I said, okay, for 90 days, I am going to work out as hard as I physically can. I am in a logical way, with a program. And I'm going to stick 100% to a carnivore diet. And I'm going to try something a little different. And it has nothing to do with anything but amino acids, believe it or not. It's really, really, really simple, but it's also really, really, really effective. So I want to see what's possible. And I'm so freaking vain that I wouldn't even take a before picture. I just wouldn't. That's one of the things that made me a little uncomfortable going to signings. I was always trying to, find a way to, because people come expecting to see the guy that they used to see on TV, and I'm not that guy anymore. And I'm always aware of that. So anyway, I said, long story short, I said, you know what? I'm just going to kick it into overdrive just to see what's physiologically possible at this stage. And I've been working out, for a while, and I'm just having an absolute blast with it. Now, part of that, and one of the reason for that, all that buildup, so this just doesn't come, rando out of nowhere, is a part of this whole process, this deep dive I'm doing, and mostly I'm doing it for energy and focus, believe it or not. That was the catalyst. That's what got me going down this rabbit hole. I wanted to be mentally as clear and sharp and have as much mental endurance as I could, because that's what we do here. All the stuff you and I are working on together and individually and together, it's all creative, whether it's creative business or creative storytelling. Same thing. You got to work that muscle. So anyway, I kept hearing about these ice baths, and I said, "Nah, man. I tried the shower thing a couple of times. I'm just too much. I can't do it. I'm too much of a pussy. It's not happening." But then the other day, I thought it was down to like 25 degrees. I thought, man, I feel like running some wind sprints, because I used to love running sprints, and I grabbed I put on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and my running shoes. And I went outside at 25 degrees at about 6:45 in the morning. And I'm out running wind sprints in a t-shirt. In fact, I took my t-shirt off about halfway through, believe it or not. And I got in the house. First of all, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be in my head. The night before, I was going, oh, why did I agree to do this? This is crazy. Anyway, I'll get to the end of this because it's cool as hell. I got in the house and I got hit by a wave of endorphins and experienced something I've never experienced in my life. It was so awesome. So now I'm hooked on endorphins, and I'm running outside in the cold. My neighbors think I'm nuts. That's the funniest part. Sorry.
Your neighbors might be right. You might actually be nuts. But we asked our live studio audience here, and 75% of fans think that Eric was right yesterday, that the new heel version of John Cena should be bald with no bright colors. What do you think about that, Eric? You still stand by that? We even saw some mock-ups, some AI photography where people were sort of guessing what could it look like. And I saw a bald Cena. I saw Cena in like a TKO shirt.
I saw that. That was kind of cool. I almost reposted that, but I want people to think I'm pushing it, right?
Right.
So I didn't repost it because it was kind of a self-serving push, or it would appear to be. But I like that one. So what do I think? I stand by what I said last night. I think something that's as drastically different from the Cena that we've known for 20 years. I'm talking about characteristically, physical and every other way, mannerisms too. I'd love to see a completely different character, to see a 100% different side of John Cena. Not 20%, not 50%, because he looks a little different, but everything else kind of stays the same. I mean, this is an opportunity for one of the top performers in professional wrestling over the last 2 decades, unquestionably measured by the only thing that matters, and that's money. Here's a chance for that individual who's achieved so much in wrestling, now for a few years has been acting. And at first it was probably rough, and he was learning, and he kept doing, and he was learning, and he kept doing, and he kept learning, and he kept doing, and he kept learning, and he kept doing. And in the process of all that learning and doing, he's absorbing and redefining his instincts in a way that can make him a really, really interesting performer now. And if he embraces a completely different character, and yeah, that would include the bald thing, yeah, definitely. I would just make, if you were going to put him, what was that movie about the guys on the cargo plane that was moving prisoners?
Con Air.
Con Air. Yeah. I want Cena to look like he was back in the back side of that plane in Con Air.
I like that.
That's what I want.
I love that.
Show me you got the chops, John. I dare you. I double dog dare you.
Can't wait to see what they do there. We are live with Eric Bischoff, so if you've got a question, keep them coming. I do want to get to this comment from B. Mandel. It says, I love getting worked. As a 54-year-old man, I sat there on my couch with my hand over my mouth, my jaw open for 5 minutes. I'm feeling excitement like I haven't felt since WrestleMania 3. I am hooked. I've seen a lot of that, a lot of just positive affirmation messages like this, like, oh, this is what I love so much about wrestling. Like, anytime you can super serve an audience like that, that's a good thing, right?
So many times we've discussed, the build going into Nitro and all the things that went into that. And I know we've talked about research, and all that, but creating emotion, the element of surprise, and all the research we did, and we've talked about this so many times. It's the reason I brought Lex Luger in the way I brought him in. I'm not just coming up with this stuff now. It was a big part of the, I hate to use the word vision for myself, but it is what it is. It was, in my mind's eye vision, it was one of the things that we absolutely needed to consistently deliver as often as we could without overdoing it with crappy surprises. Or surprises that just let people down, or didn't. In other words, you don't want to numb the audience to that element of storytelling. Be sure they're good, but you've got to do them as consistently as you can. And I think what we're going to see, all that said, creating emotion is the reason why this gentleman reacted the way he did. It's the reason why he loves getting worked, just because he wasn't insulted. He wasn't sitting there watching wrestling despite the story or lack thereof, or the bad characterization or lack thereof, or the lack to attention of detail, whatever it may be. He's not sitting through some of that just because, well, I do love wrestling. I don't want to let it go, but man, I'm really not in love with it anymore. That's kind of the state of mind most people who are, I would say peripheral viewers, passive viewers, maybe once or twice a month, not every week. There's a lot of those people out there, and they add up. So you got to serve them too. You're not just serving the people that are tuned into every show every week and live 4 hours a day on the internet. That's not who you should be serving, at least not exclusively. And I'm just excited. Sorry, let's go ahead. I'll talk all night.
We got a quick question here from Carl Hayes, but before we do that, I want to mention Awesome Sauce, who's got a comment about the John Cena situation. They say, I can't see how Cena's turn is the biggest ever. Mega Powers exploding on NBC did 20 million viewers. Andre turning on Hogan did, I guess, 33 million viewers on NBC. Meanwhile, WWE does 2 million on Netflix. Zero comparison. I think we mean in terms of impressions. Like, maybe not that many people saw the actual show on Netflix, but it was everywhere on social, right, Eric?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is where it gets so murky, and there's an argument for every point of view. And that's why I don't spend a lot of time in them, because what's the saying? Numbers lie and liars use numbers. And when you start tossing in the murky waters of television viewership and how it's measured and the various metrics that are out there and how people play with them to tell their own story, it's like, yeah. Again, I talked last night about neural pathways, man. You don't want to burn those muckerfuthers up. You want those things to stay healthy. You want your neural pathway to be on freaking fire. You don't want to gum it up with the just gunk that you see on social media any more than you have to. Granted, once in a while it's fun. Sorry.
Carl Hayes has a fun question. Rather than Mount Rushmore, for their time in the business, who do you think was more impactful, Cena or Sting? No disrespect to either. Both top level during their time, no doubt.
You know, Carl, that is a really interesting question. Because, you know, again, it's one of those, it's a numbers, right? It's who's the biggest. It's subjective, because success means different things to different people. That's why it's always a hard one for me to answer these types of questions, because there's more than one answer. But I think if the impact could somehow, and this is just gut, this is feeling, instinct, call it what you want. Maybe some ego tossed in. Probably. Come on, let's be real. I think Sting. And arguably John, bigger star, drew more money, sold more tickets, blah, 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 blah. Because he was at the highest level in the industry for nearly 20 years. Sting was there for about 3 or 4. So you can't really compare, but I think the Sting story, despite its obvious fakakta ending, did you catch that? Dave Green,
Yep.
let Dave Green know fakakta.
Got it.
Yeah, you don't want to tag that. I think Sting's story, the way it played out, the way Sting embraced that character, he brought that character to life in wrestling. Obviously, let's be real. You know, it was the Crow character. It was a character based on a character from a movie, based on this being very, very liberal, I should say. But I think the impact, man, people will remember that story. People will always remember John Cena. But has John Cena been in a story for almost a year or over a year that had the same level of impact on the wrestling audience at that time as Sting? I don't think so.
When you started your argument, I totally disagreed. But the way you summed it up, I flip-flopped. I agree. Travis Medway says Cena's turn was theater. It was excellent, but it was a theatrical turn, not emotional. We're praising it rather than feeling it. Hogan's turn made people mad. We are consuming Cena, playing heel, and enjoying the experience. I think maybe
that's before you go off. And I'm sorry. You may agree. I don't know. I understand the nature of this question, Travis. And it's deep. That's a deep question, really, is what are we reacting to in the fact that Travis did, isolated something that I've heard often from people in the industry, experienced guys who at the very top of their games, whether it be Randy Savage or Sting or Hogan or whomever, I've heard it a million times, is the difference between a really, really top level professional wrestler and somebody who's really, really good is the ability to play a character you believe and not play a character that you think is a professional wrestler. And that subtle distinction between being the character and playing the character is the difference. It's night and day. So it's a good question. I don't want to dismiss the question. Now, I think in terms of emotion, I mean, it is right. We talked about this yesterday, Conrad. I said something to the effect of, I think the Hogan turn had more, he got more of a visceral reaction. And if you put the two crowds up, still shots, video, if you can, if you look at the finish of both of those matches, Hogan's obviously, and Cena's with Rock and Cody, put them up and forget about what's going on inside the ring. Focus on what's going on outside of the ring. And the only way you can really measure anything like this, or at least, if you have any level of intellectual curiosity, which most of you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be reading some dirt sheet from Dave. Look a little bit more closely at the story itself and how John is playing it. That's what I'm hopeful for, Travis. I'm hopeful that we'll feel this character because it will be so unique. We'll see a different side of John's character that we didn't know really even existed. And it will be interesting and compelling. That's what I'm hoping for the very reason you brought that question up.
Kevin says, today WWE just launched an all WCW YouTube channel, and I'm binging old 90s WCW entrance stages, or who was responsible for those entrance stages. The glittery curtains look to me so tacky for wrestling. It looks more like a game show or a high school prom.
Well, who's responsible for it? Is that the question? I'm sorry. I was kind of laughing.
I think you just wanted to, hear who was responsible for set design.
I think, it depends. I mean, there's always been, David Crockett has always had a hand in it. Early WCW was tacky as hell. There was no budget. The company was losing millions and millions and millions of dollars every year. So there wasn't, we were allowed to, and I say, wait, this is during a period of time when I was just an announcer, right? So I wasn't involved in any of the discussions back then, but, the budget, nobody wanted to give WCW any money, so everybody made best with what to do with what they had. And I think everybody that was doing it, actually, I'm a little offended by that. Not by the question, but that people would think that, it was just, well, we're just, we don't really care. We're just going to use this cheap game show looking shit. We just did the best we could with what we had. Or WCW did the best they could with what they had at that time.
We did a poll here and asked everyone watching, does the Cena turn make sense? 43% say yes, he wants the title that bad. 50% say they're excited to find out. And 7% say it was too out of character. We got another question here. So back when I was 12, one kid got WrestleMania 5, didn't like me, invited all the other neighborhood kids over except me. I did my penance watching Steamboat and Flair 2 on the Clash. Did he do me a favor that day?
That's you. Hey, Conrad, that's your question, brother. I couldn't tell you.
Flair Steamboat 2 was pretty awesome, but I was a big Hogan Savage guy. So I'm going to go WrestleMania 5. I hate that kid for you.
I'm so impressed that you can just pull that stuff right out. Just pull it right out of your pocket. I threw you that thinking, God, as I'm asking you that question, I'm thinking, God, what a dick. I wouldn't like it if somebody asked me a question that they know damn well I'm not going to be able to answer. And that's exactly what I thought I did by throwing that your way. And look at you, just answering like a mucker father. I love it.
Well, maybe your good luck can continue, because I got a little public service announcement for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights or hotel stays or fitness classes, even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying. by going to joinbuilt.com/83weeks. That's joinbilt.com/83weeks. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/83weeks to start earning points on your rent payments today. Let's do another question here. I don't know if you saw this today, Eric, but it's got the internet pretty excited. Awesome Sauce wants to know, what are your thoughts on Earthquake and Typhoon going into the WWE Hall of Fame?
I think it's great. This is the first I heard it. I think it's great. Both those guys, man, they were, you look at the history of wrestling, in our lifetime, to our television lifetimes. Right? I'm obviously a little older than you, but still general area. It's like wrestling it's been on now it's on an upward trajectory. But if you look at the arc of popularity in professional wrestling, and I think the late 80s, early mid 80s, going into 87, 88, 89, it wasn't like the golden years of professional wrestling, but for where WWE was in their growth trajectory, that was one of the really cool periods. People were still reacting across the boards to that really animated character, the parodies, the Sergeant Slaughters, the Sheik, the playing off Iran, all that stuff. Some would work better than others, but you know what I mean? That was like that was the last, in my opinion, of that type of presentation where it was dominant in many ways. As time went on, the characters started changing a little bit more. And then now we've gotten into more of I don't want to call it a reality based, but not quite as gimmicky across the boards as it used to be. So everything has evolved. That was a great period of time. And both those guys were amazing performers at that time. And I'm happy for them up there and anywhere else, and their families and their friends and their fans.
Sad Man Steve is with us, and he wants to know, Eric, what are your thoughts on the Travis Scott situation with him slapping Cody?
Thought about that last night after we got done talking about it, and you were kind of smarting me up to some of the chatter on social media about it and how people felt about Travis getting involved. So I thought I'd go back and look at it. And I thought to myself, as I try to do, how would I feel if I was Cody?
Yeah.
Rather than me just passing judgment, which is what I'm trying to learn not to do, by the way. It's a personal kind of thing, but I work at it. So if you see me struggling sometimes, it's because I'm trying to find ways to say things that aren't quite as scar forming, if that's possible. But how do we start that out? I lost track what I was going to say.
Cody, Travis Scott.
Cody. So I thought, how would I feel if I was Cody? I would be so grateful. First of all, I would have known going in that this is not a possibility. It's probably better than 50-50, especially when you tell the guy to lay it in. I'm guessing, I don't know. I haven't texted or talked to anybody that would know. Sitting out here in the middle of Wyoming, me and my dog, my New York strip steak, and chicken. I bet Cody knew that there was a high likelihood, and I bet Cody pushed him because Cody also would know, I believe he would know that if that punch, if everything else has been done so well, they've laid this thing out. It's like, it's a Broadway play. It's happening live on stage. No cutting, no editing, no redos, nothing. This is like live action film playing out in front of you. You don't want one of the last things that people see is some sloppy, pissy looking punch. You want it to look real. And Cody also, I'm sure, knows that when you're dealing with a celebrity, no matter what they say backstage and how comfortable, especially somebody that's performed at such a high level, obviously, it's really easy for them to convince you that they're really comfortable with what they're going to do. I've worked with a lot of quote unquote celebrities and even athletes that should know better. But Cody knew it, and I bet you Cody pushed him. And I bet you Cody's happy right now because not only did the punch look freaking awesome, look devastating, people are talking about it.
Yep.
People are talking about Cody Rhodes and Travis Scott. If I was Cody, I would send him a Mercedes as a thank you.
Man, that's awesome. What a great perspective. Let's do another one here. Trick of Cheese wants to know, is Cena heel till retirement from ring or longer? Do you think that Cena will remain a heel the whole year, Eric? I don't see
it. No, but it's going to be damn near close to a year. He'll see the light, but it won't be until the very end. That's what I would do.
Jiggy Buxington says, if you were in Triple H's shoes as the booker, should you have reprimanded Travis Scott for the eardrum rupturing hammer fist?
No.
Yeah.
Because like Cody, guess what? Nobody was surprised. Disappointed, yes. Concerned, very much. Surprised, no.
Denovius Mack wants to know, do you think with Cena's turn, do you think that we will get an appearance from Stone Cold at Mania since he could help even the odds for Cody Rhodes?
God, that's a nice thought, isn't it? Denovius Mack on the money. I like that one. That's kind of cool. I like it. It can make sense for a lot of reasons. Dusty and Steve go back. There's connective tissue there. There's legendary connective tissue there. Legendary. The story's already been told. It's out there just waiting to be assembled in a fresh way as a backdrop for a compelling story with a feel-good ending. Somebody write that story, please. It's not that hard. After work's done, use AI. I don't care. Somebody complete that story. Give me a reason. Give me a motivation. Give me that inciting incident that takes place early on in the trajectory of this storyline where Steve Austin is interjected into the story. And then ask AI to build on the history of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dusty Rhodes, to provide a backdrop narrative as to why this is important. And then take us through that story, take us through that arc, put Steve in jeopardy, raise the stakes halfway through, and then hook me and pay that story off in a way that just makes me feel better about life in general. And it can be done. Yep. It can be done. Do it! Sorry.
Buddy, you said you were blissful today. There's no doubt. Alex says, do you think Harlem Heat, how do you think Harlem Heat would have fared in WWE? And why do you think Stevie never went to WWE? Seems like he had the size that Vince would have liked.
Yeah, that's a good observation, isn't it? You know, it's another what if. I think if Harlem Heat would have ended up in WWE prior to WCW, I think the odds of them, first of all, the odds of them being as successful as they were in WWE are off the charts high because they're talented. They were very, very talented, both of them. And they had a great character. And WCW was fortunate that they landed there first because the Harlem Heat had such a tremendous impact for such an extended period of time in WCW. Only because they were great. And that talent, had it landed in WWE first, would have served them just as well in WWE as it did in WCW, but there would have been much more creative support. Now, it would be more competitive in some ways. So that's, you know, if you're an agent looking at a potential talent's career, you're going to weigh the good with the bad, right? So there's some risk in there. And yeah, going to WWE would have been perhaps a little more demanding in some ways, because Vince had his own way of doing things, which was generally different than what most guys were used to initially. Ask Chris Jericho all about that. Chris Jericho will tell you all about that. Don't take my word for it. I've never done that, but Chris has. So I think the odds of them becoming successful in WWE would have been just as great, if not greater, if they adjusted. And I think Stevie in particular would have fared very well because Vince did like bigger guys. And I don't know Vince well enough to know this for certain, but what little I do know from working with him briefly and what I've heard is that he would have wanted to see more out of Stevie, and that would have given Stevie an opportunity to grow. Because WCW didn't expect much out of it. He was just he was the heater. Booker T did all the, he provided all the visuals. But when things had to get serious and bring on the heat, that was Stevie. I think if someone would have demanded more out of Stevie, he would have delivered more, and it could have changed his individual trajectory. How's that for an answer?
It's a great answer. I just realized as we're talking through this, isn't it interesting that when you think about the most successful tag teams in WCW history, I always go to the Harlem Heat and the Steiner brothers.
Right.
And only now, as we're talking about it, do I realize that the WWE only took the younger brothers, because Rick didn't go back after WCW, and Stevie Ray neither did Stevie Ray. So the younger brothers, I don't know. Interesting.
Maybe. And again, that's kind of consistent in terms of what we've heard about WWE and the focus on youth.
Yes. Alex also says, Eric, any chance we will ever see you and Booker on each other's shows? I'd love to hear you guys talk about the WCW days together.
I really like Booker. I enjoy Booker. I saw him about a month or 6 weeks ago when I was down at NXT filming a show with him and Undertaker and Mickey James. And it was fun. It was fun seeing everybody. I'd love to. And, from time to time, WWE asks me to do things, and I dig Booker. I think first of all, he's really, really good at what he does. He's quick-witted. He's a strong personality. I mean, you're going to get into it with Booker. You're going to get into it with Booker. I love that about him, and I think he and I could probably do some interesting stuff together, because in some respects we're very, very different, but in many respects we're very much alike. So I think that could be interesting, but who knows? Time will tell. I do anybody's show, almost anybody's show. What I've been doing lately is, and I've been doing this for a long time, it's not lately, but I just did one recently, is I love it when people, when I say young, I mean people who are going, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to try to come up with a wrestling podcast. I'm going to come up with a podcast where I interview interesting people. And I get asked often to do those. And I'm much more inclined to do the types of interviews where people are just starting out, because I know the value to them, mostly because of perception. It's not going to have any real impact on the outcome of their effort, really, if they have me as a guest. But I know for them and the way they're going to be perceived by at least a couple people, it's a big deal to them. And I love doing that because I know it has value. Not that anything I say has value, but the fact that these guys got me on their show and they're excited about, they're telling all their friends and their family and emailing their websites and all that kind of stuff, that I have fun doing those. I don't get asked to do, once in a while I do Bully Show, Busted Open. I'm sorry, Dave. Sorry. Do that once in a while, and every once in a while somebody else's podcast. But for the most part, the ones I do, you've never heard of.
Well, something you're all going to hear about a lot is the perfect gene. Man, I tell you what, these are maybe the best genes that anybody I've turned them on to has ever tried. Seriously. I convince people to try the perfect gene, and as soon as they get them, I mean, within a couple of days, they're like, bro, these are the best genes I've ever had. And it's all because the perfect gene has redefined what jeans can be. Here's what I mean. No more crushed nuts or saggy diaper butts. Just pure, soft, stretchy perfection. Life's too short for denim that fights you every step of the way. These are jeans that actually move with you, whether you're chasing the kids or tackling chores or just chilling like a boss. There's over 400,000 old, young, big, and small men who all agree. So imagine denim so stretchy, it's like yoga ready, but sharp enough to turn heads and comfy enough that you'll forget you're wearing them. What can you do in the perfect jean? Well, you can rescue stray cats like a denim superhero. You can man spread during game night, and you can break your hearts and maybe pull some muscles on the dance floor. The perfect jean has 6 fits, a size range from 26 to 50-inch waist, lengths up to 38. That gives you more than 5,000 ways to find your perfect match. Whether you're thick, skinny, short, tall, no matter where you fall, the perfect jean has you covered. And for a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc or Google the perfect gene and use the code 83weeks15 for 15% off. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectgene.nyc with the promo code 83weeks15. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. So fuck your khakis and get the perfect gene. You love when I say fuck your khakis. It makes you laugh.
I just don't expect it because it's such a normal read and it sounds like something you would expect to hear while you're driving down the road on the radio, and then all of a sudden, boom, he drops the F-bomb in the middle of the read. I like it.
Catherine Summers, who's been a member for 8 months, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate, says, Eric, what do you think of the partnership between WWE and TNA? What are you making of that? We haven't talked about that in a while.
I'm very interested in it. Only because of the business nature of it and the strategic nature of it. That's what I'm most interested in. There is a reason why, and I think I know what it is, or at least one of the reasons why. There's a reason why WWE sees value in this relationship. And in no particular order, and I won't start off with what I think it is it an opportunity for some of the NXT talent to go from a home turf environment where they become comfortable, but they've really not performed in front of a different type of crowd? Because crowds have personalities, cities have personalities, regions have personalities, and crowds don't always react the same way to the same thing in different parts of the country. Part of getting experience and learning and developing your skills as a character and a performer is learning how to dance with the audience so that you're leading them into whatever reaction you're hoping to achieve within the body of your match. And I think it would make sense to me if I was running things, and I don't know if it would make sense business-wise, but just strategically, if I could take talent, potential talent, train them, get them comfortable in front of a hometown crowd down at the NXT studio or whatever they call it, arena, venue, you know what I'm talking about. Get them there, and then maybe before they make it to the big stage, let's let them go play Pittsburgh. Let's get them used to a different kind of crowd. Let's put them in an environment where they know if they're a heel, they're going to have to work a little differently to get heat. It's not as easy as it is in whatever, Chicago. It's different in Phoenix. Go learn that. So you could come up with a lot of scenarios that on paper, that kind of thing makes sense. There probably are others, but I think primarily, just remember, MLW sued them and won $20 million. WWE is getting so big so fast that the perception is going to start working against them. If they do nothing wrong, they're going to be accused of doing all kinds of things wrong because they're going to be so hard to compete with because their tentacles are everywhere. Between their growth and the vertical integration of media companies, it's like that octopus has got his shit all wrapped around a flagpole. I mean, it's that tight. It's really hard to get away from WWE. So I think strategically, if I was them, if I was in their risk analysis department or risk management department, I'd be looking at that most recent judgment and go, okay, we don't want this to happen again. So what are some of the things that we can do proactively to be sure that we're not perceived to be trying to create a monopoly? That's what I would be thinking. I'm not that smart. And if I'm thinking like that, somebody else that's in the business of not getting sued is thinking like that.
The Out of Pocket Variety Show has a great question for you, Eric. I think you'll love this one. If you ran things, how would you want Cena to go about his first heel promo? Should he be sarcastic and passive aggressive, or lash out and vent?
That needs thought to do it justice, because it's a really, really good question. But going back to what I said last night and reiterated again here tonight, I'd start out with what could be the most different than narrative and tone that this character, this version of John Cena has. I'd lean into less is more, at least initially. I'd weigh in heavily on kind of mysterious. Don't be definitive. Don't come out and tell me week one why. You already left me hanging. You've kind of planted that hook. Leave it in as long as you can. I've been deep sea fishing once, but I don't remember the experience much because I was drinking like a mofo. But basically, when you fish for big fish, you throw your bait out there, you get the bite, you set the hook, right? And then you let them run. You leave that hook in as long as you can because you want to tire that fish out. You don't want it to kill it, but you just want to be able to get that fish where you want it. Okay, calling wrestling fans fish, I know, is not going to get a lot of positive coverage on the internet, but just kind of think about it in the terms of John's turn. They've got the fish hooked. Now everybody wants to know why. Just let them enjoy that ride for a little while. Let them run with that bait and talk about it like we're talking about it right now. Some mystery in there. Let that breathe. Let that moment exist. You got time. You can always just lay down the law and tell me why you did what you did or what your motivation is. But I think as long as there's kind of a layer or two of mystery surrounding John's motivations and what drew him to this, I think the stronger the story gets.
I got another comment from Luis Martinez, who says, "Hey, Eric, how much longer do you think cable has before it dies? Living in NY, I don't know anyone who has cable anymore. I don't think I do either. I don't think I know a single person who still watches cable television. I mean, what percentage do you think are cutting the cords year over year? When does it just die off?"
I don't think it'll die off. I think there's always going to be a market for cable, but I think in 24 months, it's not going to look anything like it looks now. I mean, just look, where's the biggest money in cable television? It's in news. I'm just cable. I'm not talking about streaming platforms, but I don't know that as a fact, by the way. I'm telling you what I think I know based on anecdotal information and the way the business has been for a while, and just, reading about that industry kind of peripherally from time to time. But the news divisions, MSNBC for NBC, Fox, Fox Studios, Fox News, CNN was for Turner the cash cow. Everything existed within the Turner organization when I was there because of CNN's cash flow. It carried the freaking company. Now it's basically going to be spun off at a flea market. Even cable news is dying And when those revenues dry up, there's not going to be a lot of money left for high dollar dramas, comedies, sports. That shit's all going away. And what will be left will be more like local television was before cable. There'll just be lots more of it. There'll be infomercials. That industry is going to take off because that's the type of thing you're going to see. Paid programming, guys that have fishing shows and hunting shows and all those kind of things that are really cool. It has an audience, but it's really hard to sell it. It's really hard to sell advertising in those types of shows for all kinds of reasons. So a lot of guys just go out and get 5 or 6, 7 different sponsors, some of them locally. If they're relatively known, if they're competitive fishermen or outdoors people, sometimes they have their own little local TV shows. They end up getting 4, 5, 6 sponsors. They get enough money going, and they start out slowly. And eventually, there's guys that I knew in Minnesota that took this model and made $10, $15 million a year back in the late 80s. So it's a definite money-making model if you can figure it out. But that's only about 10% of them. The other 90% of them are pretty bad, but you're going to get to know all of them because that's what it'll be. And, news.
Jake is with us here, and he says, hey, Eric, any chance you're going to attend Wrestleverse Fest in Kansas City on June 28th and 29th? Sting, Nash, Luger, and others will be attending. Would love to meet you, nWo for life.
Well, you better reach out to that promoter and just say, what the fuck? I didn't get a call. Nobody called me. What the hell? I'd love to go to Kansas City. I don't know what I'm doing in June. My summer's going to be a little whacked this year. Believe it or not, I'm going to Scotland. Got a little bit of business to take care of, and I'll be talking more about that when the time comes because it's not my deal to talk about. But when it's appropriate, so that's going on in that area. I don't know, man. I'd love to though. Seriously, reach out to the promoter and ask him. Ask him if he's reached out to me, and when he does, I will give you all the credit in the world. No commission, but credit.
We did a poll here amongst everyone watching. According to the industry itself, or I'm sorry, we didn't do a poll. According to the industry itself, 69.8% of cable subscribers have cut the cable since 2014. I'm part of that group. I had DirecTV. I'm a YouTube TV now.
I'm both. Because of where I live, I don't have 100% faith in any form of Wi-Fi.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, so I've got cable for backup is what I've got.
Virgil Dawkins says, why is the internet worried so much about Cody's black eye and ear injury and assuming WrestleMania is in jeopardy now? It makes no sense. He literally wrestled an entire Hell in a Cell match before with a torn pec. Not a porn, but a torn pec. We talked about that yesterday. There's zero chance Cody's missing WrestleMania. I put that at 0 chance.
Hey, I hope Cody heals 100%, but God gave us 2 eardrums. He's still good. He'll go.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that. But if you're looking to get in on some action on sports, Prize Picks is the way to go in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is really easy to use to create a lineup. All you have to do is pick more or less of a few player stat projections for your shot to win up to 1,000x your money. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players with your favorite players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. And now Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account all sports season long. The second half of the basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks. So what are you waiting for? Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning is beginning. What are you waiting for? Download the app today. Use the code 83weeks. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's worth repeating. Download Prize Picks right now. Download the app today and use the code 83weeks to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Eric, we got another question here that says, or maybe this is more of a comment. I don't know. Mike D says, why not have Hogan come out with Rock and Cena's got legit heat? What do you think about that? Associating Hogan with this?
Oh, God.
He's not going to get physical, right? So we can't do
No,
that.
no. Here's the deal. I'm just hoping he doesn't hear this.
Oh, God.
If I get a call tomorrow morning, and when he calls me, by the way, and he and I are doing some fun things together that we'll be talking about very soon. So we've been speaking more than we normally would. And when he does call me, it's like 6 a.m. my time. Now, fortunately, I'm usually up around 4:30. So I'm good. I've had my coffee and all the things I need to do to, wake up and have a conversation. But if I get that call tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and I see it's him, I know he's calling about this idea. Not that he'd even volunteer wanting to do it, but he would be so excited about the idea of it. He'd go off and tell me 15 different ways to do it. And it would be fun to listen to because he gets into it like he's really laying it out. And then, it's fun.
Darvio Moro was with us and says, if Jeff Hardy didn't have his issues then, would his TNA heel turn be considered as one of the bigger ones? I remember it being big at the time.
Unfortunately, no. And I've talked about this so many times. When you are a small scale version of a very large competitor and presentation, you can't it just doesn't have the gravity. It's just a small show and with a smaller audience, and nothing that happens in front of that smaller audience feels nearly as dramatic as it deserves to. You just can't create the kind of reaction and emotion you need for that moment to be as compelling as possible and be regarded as one of the top emotional moments in a heel turn in front of 550 people that come and watch you every single week and have become somewhat emotionally, I don't know, numb isn't quite the right word, but Pavlovian perhaps. They're reacting almost on cue, and they're not really engaged in the emotion of what's going on to the degree of people that come and you're surrounded by 5, 10, 12, 15,000 or more people. That crowd creates its own force of energy, which is emotion. And you can't manufacture it in front of 650 people, no matter how hard you try. And it's unfortunate because I think if that heel turn for Jeff would have happened on a larger stage in front of a larger audience, now we're going to have a conversation about it. But because of everything I just explained, not today, we're not.
Brad K wants to know, should Cornette be on Raw in Louisville? It's been talked about a lot that Cornette won't leave Louisville. He's not going on the road. He's not getting in an airplane. It's not his deal. When it comes to him, what do you think the likelihood is that we see Jimmy Cornette on TV?
I don't know, and I know he hates my guts and I don't care, but I like him more and more every time I learn more about him. It's just like, yeah, he's kind of funny. You gotta love a guy that says, I'm not leaving Louisville. I'm just not doing it. I'm not getting in a car. I'm not getting on a plane. I'm not going to hitchhike. I'm not even going to walk far. I'm just staying here. And if you want to do something with me, come on in, but what I like, you gotta love that.
I do.
I'm not there yet. I kind of admire him. He's got more money than I do. I still got, they keep sending me bills, but I got to keep working to, pay him. So I'm still out hustling and jamming, but you got to admire a guy like that. I'd love to see it. Again, I'm not putting him over for any other reason. And he's fun as hell to listen to. And I don't agree with everything that he says. I find myself disagreeing at the core of what he's saying. Forget about how he says it. At the core of what he's saying, I probably agree with him way more than I realize. So I think he's a great character. Yeah, he's got his own thing, and that thing can be somewhat dangerous on national television, but he knows how to handle himself. So I'd like to see it. I think it'd be a great addition to the show. Give it an edge, especially on Netflix. Why not? Who do we have to call, Conrad? We need to help make that happen because that's a good damn idea.
Luis Martinez has another great question. Eric, would you have released the Radicals in 1999?
Oh, hell no. I've told the story before how when I, not knowing any of that was going on until I saw it happen on television, and I went and I looked at my wife and said, okay, things were bad before, but right now, this is the Titanic has hit the iceberg. It wasn't trying to get around the iceberg anymore. It just went head on into the iceberg. And I told my wife, I looked at it, just let me go in September, paid me off, huge chunk of money, blah, 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 blah. And 3 months later, hey, Eric, what do you think about maybe coming back? So no, I would not have done that. That was keep in mind, ultimately, it didn't make any difference. That company was determined to be spun off of Turner Broadcasting come hell or high water. There is nothing that could have saved or altered the course of that company's destiny under the AOL Time Warner management. And anybody that doesn't recognize that is being willfully ignorant. I have no time for that. So let's move on. I'll camp out on that all night. Let's move on.
Frank says, hey, Eric, do you think if Tony Khan never would have made the Ted Turner comments, you would have been less critical of AEW?
Honest answer, yeah. I mean, I could bullshit you here, and I could probably say some smart sounding shit that would make you think maybe it's true, but that really disappointed me to the point where it had nothing to do with me. It was just so disrespectful of someone who I have so much respect for, and everybody that's in the industry today. Everybody that's in the industry today should be thankful and grateful for what Ted Turner contributed to the business. And for someone who professed to be such a student and someone who I had heard was kind of looked favorably in terms of what WCW accomplished, the good and the bad, which is, a fair way to look at things in a respectful way. For him to come out and say that about Ted on the network that Ted Turner built from scratch at a time when everybody thought Ted Turner was nuts because Ted Turner's vision for what cable television would be was so far out there, he had a hard time getting people to go into business with him. Oh, and throw a little crazy on top of that because he was fun. And he did not give a fuck. That is the renegade of all renegades in the world of media in our freaking lifetime. He was like a badass Elon Musk who just did not give a fuck and would tell you that with a microphone in his hand early in his career. So much admiration for what he did, and to say something like that, I just thought it made me lose any respect. And with that, the benefit of the doubt. But guess what? I'm not proud of that. I don't think that that's a good thing. It's a flaw. I'm being a jackass with that attitude because I'm just hanging on to it, and it's stupid. So I'm going to avoid talking about AEW, and this will probably be the last time I'll answer a question like this because you can only answer them so many times in so many different ways. ways while trying to make the same point, that at some point I just go, next question, please. But yeah, I just made up my mind. Tony's going to do what Tony's going to do. Tony has the ability to do what he's going to do, and everybody around him is benefiting from that. So go, Tony. Go, everybody there. And my opinion really shouldn't matter. So I'll just keep it to myself.
Virgil Dawkins says, why does WWE hire so many failed and retired athletes that don't do well in sports? Most of them having no knowledge of wrestling or the culture and just want a job. This annoys me as a diehard fan.
I'm perplexed.
What do you mean?
How many retired and failed athletes that don't do well in sport? Who are we talking about here? Give me an example.
I guess they're thinking there's a lot of people at the PC. I'm not really sure. I mean, Braun Breaker seems to be doing well. Tiffany Stratton seems to be doing well. Bianca Belair.
I mean, that's what I mean. This is an absurd question. This is another right. Virgil, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to. I'm trying not to be judgmental here, but you and I see two different things, bro. And maybe it's because I have a different perspective. And sometimes when two people have different perspectives, which means you're looking at it from different angles, maybe I appreciate something that you don't see, or vice versa. But man, what I saw, and this is unfair because I saw it in person, when I saw the level of talent in the PC down in Orlando, it was one of the things, it's the only thing that's really shocked me, or and I want to say shocked, it's the only thing that's really had a major impact on me in terms of the business that I wasn't kind of aware of. Like, I didn't realize how far advanced that whole process has become. And I saw a ring full, probably two ringfuls of really young talent. We're talking early 20s, late teens, early 20s. Wasn't sure the age, but in that range. All Division I athletes doing things in the ring that made me think they'd been there for 6 months. They'd only been there for a week. They're learning so quickly because they're trainable. They've learned how to be coachable. And obviously they're very athletically gifted. So I'm looking at that thing from an entirely different perspective and somewhat confused by your angle. But hey, maybe I'm wrong.
Vin wants to know, Eric, a 14-year-old me had my email question asked on air when you were on Off the Record in Canada back in the 90s. What are your memories of doing that show? Did you like Landsberg?
I liked him. He was an obnoxious, just in your face, trying hard to be that, cutting edge journalist, dig, fight, and he pushed me. And not just me, but that was his thing, right? And I kind of dug that because I like to be fucked with, especially on air. I like to be challenged that way. That kind of makes remember those neural pathways I keep talking about? Those motherfuckers get on fire when that kind of thing happens. You've heard me go off on a rant. When those things go off, pop, 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 all of a sudden they're going off so fast, my head starts to get hot. Ergo the gray hair. Fuck, it's fun. So, yeah, I had a good time with it.
King of Games wants to know, can you tell us what the reaction backstage was when Booker T cut that promo on Hogan? What was Tom Warner's reaction?
Oh, here I was thinking about this saying yesterday. Here's how bored I am sometimes. Just being in the middle of nowhere, living the life I live, choosing to live the life I live, and being grateful every day for it. I kind of like my space. I'm not good at chatting for the sake of chatting, so I don't like to talk to my neighbors. I don't go to the grocery store and talk to people, or just kind of leave me alone. Let me get lost in my own head, man. I really dug it. So maybe I'm desensitized to a lot of shit, but that question, we've become so sensitized to that particular incident. It's an entirely different reaction today. And I'm talking about the collective we as a society, as a culture. I'm not passing judgment on good or bad. I'm just stating a fact. Our sensitivity to things racially has become so much more heightened over the last couple of years. And I don't know, it's not like I'm tracking or studying, but certainly it seems to be over the last 5, 6, 8, 10 years, whatever. And back then, I didn't hear a word from Time Warner. I didn't hear a word from the audience. There may have been some people that wrote in and some people that were offended. Believe me, I'm sensitive to that even to this day. I'm not suggesting that people weren't. I'm just telling you, it wasn't even a blip on the radar. It would be today. People's hair would catch fire. And depending on your point of view, rightfully so. So it was a different time, and that's a perfect example of that.
Well, maybe it's time you made your wiener feel like it was a different time. Have some better sex with Blue Chew, why don't you? Blue Chew's the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And starting now, Blue Chew's offering a combo so strong it'll knock your socks off and your neighbor's socks off. In fact, you're going to have to move towns with the amount of noise you'll be making. Blue Chew Max has arrived, and it combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. This new combo acts fast and lasts. Guys, be ready when she needs it and get your first month of Blue Chew free. You see, great sex is just a few clicks away. So sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use our promo code 83 weeks. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code 83 weeks. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Silva, that graphic was awesome. It's like me pointing at those two beautiful women in their chests.
Okie dokie.
Did you not see it, Conrad?
No. Okay, I pull up, says, when was the last time you spoke with Vince? That's a good question, Eric.
When it was right, I think it was right after Christmas, and I went in to do a spot where there was a wedding. His wife, I performed their service or something. Remember that?
Kinda.
Yeah. And I was in a white suit. They wanted me in a white suit because then they wanted of course you got to humiliate the legend on the way out the door. So I stood there and, got dumped on in the middle. I think it was in the middle of the ring or outside.
December 2021. December 2021.
Yeah, that was the last time I talked to him.
Okay.
That was the last time I talked to him. I went in and went into his office and we talked for a while, and that was it. Probably lasted 90 seconds.
Here's one from Luis Martinez. He says, Cornette laughed at the fact that Meltzer said Tony could have ran WCW better than Eric because of all the egos he had to deal with, and he couldn't handle the Bucks. Eric, how did you handle that situation? That's probably one of the more challenging parts of being in that seat, is managing all those personalities, right?
It really wasn't as hard as you would think 80% of the time. So 80% of the time, it was much easier than people would think. It really is, overall, given the nature of the performer, there's generally quite a bit of respect inherent in the industry to this day. Even the little bit of indie exposure that I get, occasionally doing, independent shows, and I end up backstage and, I'm just observing, got nothing else to do but look and watch. And as I look, you look around the wrestling room or the dressing room and you get a vibe. And there's still it's just inherent in the business, I think, because of the nature of it. So It's an easy business, more so than people think, except for that 20%. The 20%, now you've got big personalities. That's why they're performers, whether it's professional wrestlers or actors or actresses or whatever. Rock and roll singers, you're out there because you want to perform. You've got an ego. You've got to feed that ego with something that's way different than most people need. And you become a performer on whatever stage you become a performer on, and you thrive off that. All that stuff feeds that ego, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And most of the time, it's a healthy ego, and sometimes it's not. And then you throw in a little bit of a confrontation, and a little chemical imbalance here and there. Pow! It goes crazy fast in a way that you don't normally come across in the course of day-to-day business. It doesn't happen at the bank, right? Usually won't happen inside, a real estate office or a doctor's office, but it can happen, has happened, does happen, as we know, backstage. And then it all depends on, it comes down to how you're going to react. You're going to overreact, you're going to underreact, you're going to hide, you're going to pretend it didn't happen, you're going to come down too hard on people. It's a learned skill. It doesn't come naturally.
Travis Medway has been a member here for 11 months. Appreciate you, Travis. And he says, elaborating on my theater comment, I just think people will turn up to see and enjoy Cena's heel turn like they watch a baddie at a movie rather than really hating him. Do you think we can ever bring back proper heels?
I guess what I was trying to say, Travis, and I really appreciate you digging in and following up with this question. What I'm trying to say is I am hopeful, based on John's track record over the last several years, becoming a better actor, working with better actors, being directed by better directors, because as his film career ascends, so does the quality and talent of the people that are around him. And I'm hoping that all of that is going to wind up with a character that will deliver exactly what you're looking for. Because I believe, given all of the experience that John's had over the last 20 years in the ring and the last 5 or whatever it's been in Hollywood, I think there's the potential of him delivering a character that will give you every bit as much story as you're hoping to get. I believe it's possible, given all of the variables. John's got the talent. Backstory can be there. That's where you got to come up with a good idea. And the execution, they've proven that they can execute incredibly well. So I am hopeful. Let's see. Who knows?
Here's one from Michael Byrne. He wants to know, Eric, what books would you recommend reading for a person that is new to sales?
Oh, I don't read a lot of that type of book, right? Motivation, business. So I don't have any off the tip of my tongue, but I will tell you the first book I ever read when I was about 14, and I've never been a big reader. I just very impatient, sitting still long enough to read a book and actually absorb anything. The amount of time that takes requires me sitting still, and that's always been difficult for me. Either physically it's difficult to just sit still and focus on one thing, or mentally it's really difficult because there's just a lot of shit I'm interested in. Sorry, what was the question?
I said Meltzer's going to clip that out.
Why?
I'm not a big reader.
I don't give a fuck. You know why? Because sometimes you come across shit like that and you fry your circuits.
Yes. So any recommendations? The first book you said you were going to say the first book you ever read?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie.
There you go.
I had a friend, Bob Ray, one of the guys that's responsible for me living here where I live in Wyoming, by the way. He was kind of a mentor. He was 12 years older than me when I was 14. He was a really successful salesman. He sold advertising for a company in Pittsburgh. And I looked up to him a lot. And he encouraged me to read that book because I wanted to learn about what he did. He lived right across the street from me. He was cool as shit. And he was like a big brother. And I was so motivated by him. And I said, how did you do this? And He told me, read this book. So that's it. Read that book.
Vin says, I see online that someone asked Tony Khan about John Cena at his media call. Some criticism online saying this is an inappropriate question. What are your thoughts, Eric?
So somebody asked Tony Khan about John Cena's turn at Tony Khan's press conference.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's a media call, but yeah.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah,
What are you going to give people a script? Say, here's the question you get to ask.
Right.
Dude, you're going to do a fucking media call. Do a media call, and people shouldn't be so worried about the types of questions that come up. There'll be good questions. There'll be stupid questions. There'll be people that'll make asses of themselves, just like they do at the White House press conferences all the time. So get over yourselves, you people. What the hell?
Roland Barcia says, should Cena's heel character wear expensive suits and glasses? Did you get mad when Scott Hall asked Giant on air if Andre was really your dad?
No,
do you remember Scott Hall saying that? Was that an issue?
No.
I didn't imagine. Now, the second part, Cena as a heel, what do you think about a look for him? Fancy suits and glasses.
Yeah, Roland, I appreciate the question. We talked about that a little bit last night. I'd go the other way. You know, I mean, Rock is like Gucci'd out. He's got it all. Why would you take away from that? Let that character be that character. Come in with your own. It doesn't look like a derivative of Rock's. Meaning a suit and glasses and jewelry and that. No, something else. Something the opposite of that. I don't know what it is sitting here. I'll think about it because this question keeps coming up.
Well, you said last night, maybe jeans, maybe make it look like Stone Cold.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Sleeveless t-shirt. Something a little badass looking. Something like you'd expect to see Sylvester Stallone in one of those war movies. That kind of thing.
Expendables.
Yeah, something like that. Don't copy it.
So Roman Reigns gear.
Something that's inspired by something that looks real.
What about Glacier's outfit?
Fuck, that'd be awesome.
Can you imagine
that? Oh man, the audience, the internet would explode. Can you imagine what they'd be saying on X? Twitter would be on fire. We'd be trending.
It would be awesome. Angry Duckling Institution says, should heel Cena's garb at WrestleMania honor the Chinese flag, especially given the current tariffs trade war after Cena's military persona run and Cody's garb? So, wow, he's maybe thinking in terms of a comic book here, or a Marvel movie, but I dig the line of thinking. You do have the American Nightmare, so if you're trying to create that, we know that Cena did go learn Mandarin on his own. That would be weird to see him cut a promo like that. I could see that being fun as like an internet thing, but I just don't see them doing that on Netflix. Do you?
I have a love-hate relationship with this idea. I love it because it's so fertile. Like,
yeah,
you could go so many different ways with this, and you could walk right up to the edge of being slightly inappropriate and back off just a little bit, and you could get away with some really interesting stuff that would get people talking. They'd be talking about your product, good and bad. Controversial. Shit happens then. But that'd be wild. Just because you could go so many different ways. It's fun. That's why I love it. Here's why I hate it, because you could never do that. Nobody will ever do that idea. It's too. They'll talk about it in the news. They'll create drama series that'll have a backstory about China and the U.S. in a war and all kinds of spies going back and forth and stealing each other's shit. It's okay to do that. But if you try to take what's really going on today politically and put it in the ring, for some reason, there's like this other kind of censor in our own minds that's been embedded there and planted there and manipulated there to make us think that It's okay to take topical, mainstream, public discussion, discourse issues and weave them into fictional characters and stories across all kinds of media platforms, mainstream. It's okay to do that. That's the creative process. There's probably some First Amendment shit in there too. But you can't do that for wrestling. Oh no. Their hair will catch fire. And then when the show's over, they'll flip over and watch some other shit on streaming that does the exact same thing, but since it's a drama or a comedy or an action movie, it's okay. That's okay. But not in wrestling. That pisses me off. That aspect of the way people look at wrestling. And look, it comes down to advertisers. Advertisers have been drug along so reluctantly for such a long period of time, since the beginning of television time and wrestling met. Their first fucking date, it's been kicking and screaming all the way through. It wasn't even an issue in the 60s because nobody would buy wrestling. Local car lots would. Some local advertising would, but there was no national sales of wrestling other than the Dumont Network and a couple other initial efforts into the business that back in the 50s. My point is that wrestling's come a long way. Let's move along. I'll go off on a tangent. I'm so sorry.
That's what we're here. We're here for the tangents, man. Angus Smothers says, whoop, whoop, big fan of you both. My question to both of you is, what would be your dream WrestleMania match if you could book it and why? Yeah, this year, Eric, what would be your dream WrestleMania match?
I can't do it. I just can't. I can't. I couldn't even give you one right now. I'd have to think about it. I don't have one off the top of my head. I'd have to really think about that.
Well, we don't have to think about Magic Spoon. We know it's fantastic. We know they make high protein cereal with 0 sugar and they have fantastic treats. And think about those, you're a kid and you're watching wrestling or cartoons with a big bowl of cereal. Well, it tastes just like that, but without the sugar and with the protein. And now Magic Spoon is also launching a brand new high protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and so crunchy. You've heard me talk about these high protein treats for a while. They're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and it's an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. I love the double chocolate, but they've also got other delicious flavors like marshmallow or chocolatey peanut butter, even dark chocolate. I also want to mention the brand new granola packs. You get 13 grams of protein and 0 added sugars. They come in awesome flavors like dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and even peanut butter. What are you waiting for? Go get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/83weeks, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/83weeks for $5 off. I want to give a special shout out to Rich, who gifted 10 memberships. Man, thank you very much.
Outstanding.
Aikman says, evening, Eric. If the WCW Big Bang return went ahead in 2001, where would your WCW be today? That's interesting. You know, I mean, if WCW could have continued, I guess that would mean that AEW at least wouldn't be on TBS and TNT. So that would be different. Can you think of anything else that would really change if WCW was still around?
The truth is there's no way I can conceive of WCW still being around. Even if the purchase with Fusion would have gone through. And I said this in a documentary I did for WWE years ago. Right at the end of the documentary, they asked me a question about, I'm paraphrasing all this, I don't remember exactly, but it was kind of like, after it was all said and done, WCW being sold to WWE, after all this time, how do you feel about it? And I said something to the effect of, I was grateful for it, which was odd in light of things. But the reality is, I know for a fact that had Fusion purchased WCW, they weren't purchasing it to build it and hold on to it. They were purchasing it to build it and flip, because that was the art form of financial transactions that Steve Greenberg, right, and Fusion, that was their deal. Brian Vidal, that's their deal. They bought things that had little value and they made them more valuable, and then they sold them. And I know that 100%. I know that. I should have known it early on, because it's really kind of a standard operating kind of. That's what people do. They buy broke things, they fix them, they sell them. It's no different than going to a flea market and buying some old piece of furniture that you see potential in, and you bring it home and you work on it, you make it pretty, and then you sell it for 4 times more than you paid for it, and the time you put into it. That's what Brian Vidal and Steve Greenberg were good at. And I think because that would have been the intention going in, it would not have lasted. It would not have endured multiple transactions, meaning if it was sold, if Brian bought it, if Fusion would have bought it, I was a part of the team. If we would have bought it, we would have sold it. We would have made a lot of money, and that would be the end of it. It would have gone to somebody else who probably at some point would either sell it or fuck it up. It's you've got to be in the business for more than a transactional reason to be successful in it. You've got to love it, not just as a performer. We all know that, because you have to be committed to the work to be good in the ring. That's work. The business itself is a grind. It's 52 weeks of grind. And it just takes so long. It just takes so long to get there. So, next question.
B. Needler says, why do you think it's still considered weird to like wrestling? Did you ever have people outside of the industry tell you, it's fake, right?
Yeah. We've talked about that before. When I worked for Turner, and I had a carry-on bag, and I always flew first class, because after a while you just get frequent flyer miles, and Turner did fly me first class. It was part of my contract. Either way, I'm always in first class. And when you fly first class on a regular basis, more often than not, you're sitting next to somebody who is oftentimes a business person. And you're on a long flight. People feel the need to strike up a conversation. Personally, I wish they wouldn't, because I don't like to talk when I'm on a plane. I don't like to talk much, period, when I'm not on the show. But inevitably, you end up engaged in some kind of a conversation. It's a general conversation, like many that you've had. Every one of us have had. Hey, how are you? Where are you going? Oh, home, business. Oh, business. What business are you in? Oh, fuck. I know what's coming next. From the point where I'm asked, oh, what business are you in? I can tell you what the conversation is going to be before the conversation happens. And then you go through that whole thing. What do you do? Oh, I work for Turner Broadcasting. Oh, what do you do there? In the television side of things. Oh, really? What do you do in television? Professional wrestling. What? Did you say professional wrestling? Really? That's what you do? Wow. That stuff. Oh, man, I can't believe that stuff. I can't believe people still watch that stuff, man. Yep, they do. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm going wherever I'm going. Yeah, I'm going to see if I get any messages here. So what makes people watch wrestling? I mean, I never understood. Like, when I was a kid, I used to watch it, because my friends watch it, and my grandpa liked it. I sit around and watch it. When I was like, 6, 8, 9 years old. And then, I watched it a little bit, when I was in my early teens. And, and I went to college, and I had kind of oh, really? Where'd you go to college? Oh, man, we'd have these big frat parties, and in fact, there was this thing called a nitro party. We used to do that. Really? You go to a nitro party? That's awesome. So anyway, I can't believe people watch this stuff. And what about last Monday night when, and then they tell you, the finish of a match from, the last nitro. I went through that conversation a million times. Is some version of that. It's just funny. It's a little bit like, wrestling is kind of just a little bit above porn. Like, nobody admits to watching porn. I'll make jokes about it and shit, but nobody says, I don't even know how
Let's break that trend right now. Eric, what website do you go to, Crank Hog?
Yeah, no. Nice try.
No, I mean, listen, let's celebrate Sean.
Nice try. You're taking me off my point. My point is that wrestling is slightly more comfortable than that conversation that we're not going to have.
Okay.
Which is really weird given it's everywhere. It's mainstream. It's as mainstream as, like, it's looking better than the NBA right now in terms of performance and trends. But it's still got that stigma. But yeah, I've had it.
B. Needler says, Eric looks like a Brazzers kind of guy. I don't even know what that is, but thoughts and prayers. Michael Scoggins says, with Cena's last run being a heel, do you think that they will bookend his run with a redemption sort of ending? I mean, they kind of have to, don't they?
That's what I said earlier when somebody said, how long do you think it'll last? I said, go right to the very end, but not to the end. There will be, I didn't use the term redemption, but yeah, there would. I agree. That's what it'll be. I think they'll have a lot of fun. I think the journey, this is going to be, if you just imagine that this character is starting today, you know John Cena's background, obviously, but this is a whole brand new character that's going to be on. When does he leave? What is there an end date in mind?
I think it'll just be through the end of the year. I mean, they may stretch through next year's Rumble. I don't know.
So we got about 9 months left, whatever it is.
10 months, yeah.
10 months. So we got 10 months to tell a story. Act 1 will take 3 months. Act 2 will take 3 months. And Act 3 will take 3 months. And if you break that story down into a 3-act structure and hit the right plot points along the way, so we're telling this story, which is essentially going to be hopefully a redemption story, but we're going to reverse engineer it and just see that story develop that whole period of time. That's what I'm really, really hoping we're going to see.
Our buddy Ant ran a poll here and said 80% of our fans have gotten the it's fake, right? Question. I'm so annoyed by that. John Collins says, Eric, it's John. I asked you some time ago if your new book was in an audio version. And at the time you said no. Are there any updates about that situation?
Yes. No. Not yet. That's a better answer. Not yet. I really want to, and I've tried several times, but I just really haven't had the time to focus on it, is the honest answer. Let me put it this way. I've had the time. I haven't been able to focus on it. So until I can carve out enough time to really, really do it well, because that's another problem I have. If it's not really perfect, then I'm forced to do it over again. And it probably takes me 10 times longer than it would take the average person, because I'm a little bit obsessive about that particular issue. So eventually I will. I don't know when. No promises.
Matty Marijuana says CM Punk's promo on Raw was awesome. He's hopeful that we get Austin at WrestleMania 41. I know Punk Bitch says, I wouldn't say The Rock is the greatest wrestler of all time, but would you agree he has the most big moments, like matches, promos, and rivalries? What do you think about that? Is he the big moment guy?
I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, yeah. I mean, across the board in WWE and in, feature films over the last, 5-10 years, he's been at the top of his game. Spent a couple of years as the highest paid actor in Hollywood. So yeah, I'd say he's kind of a big moment guy. I'd lean into that.
Hoodie 5 Season says, do you think WCW would have still been winning the Monday Night War in 99 if Bret Hart's run and the Starrcade 97 Sting Hogan finish were done perfectly? So in this alternate universe, you nail the perfect ending for the Hogan Sting feud, and Bret Hart just fits right in and becomes a top guy. Does it change anything in the Monday Night Wars?
An easy answer would be no, because of all the reasons I've discussed ad nauseum, and I just don't want to anymore, at least not tonight, because I've spent way too much time in the deep weeds. Trying to think, First of all, here's why I'm struggling with this. I'm taking a little bit of exception to the Sting Hogan finish Starrcade. If you go back, take your personal, emotional wrestling fan identity out of the equation.
Set your fandom aside.
Set your fandom aside. Look at nothing but numbers. Go back and look at numbers following Hogan Sting 97. Across the board, you tell me how much damage that finish did, given that 98 was a record year.
Biggest year ever.
So I know why you asked the question, and I don't blame you for asking it, right? Because you're looking at it from one perspective. And you assume because it was a disappointment, perhaps in your mind, or perhaps because you read about it being a disappointment. Either way, you're disappointed in that finish. So therefore you think, since it happened, it must have been one of the things that led to the downfall of WCW, because that's what Dave Meltzer says. And it's stupid. Numbers, in this case, don't lie. The information is out there. You don't have to believe me. In fact, I hope you don't believe me. And I hope you spend, 20 minutes looking for this information. You got AI at your fingertips, dude. Just ask AI the question. What was WCW's television ratings performance year over year, 97, 98? Or revenues? Or pay-per-view buy rates? Or ticket sales? Any, metric you want to pull out of your ass? So you can.
You got to get hot about it. Damn
No,
nation.
I'm not hot. I'm just excited. Not hot. Any metric you want. Go back and look at that and then maybe rephrase that question. So let's put that part of the question aside because it's not appropriate.
Yeah, you dumb son of a bitch.
It's not what I said.
Kinda.
It was kind of stupid though, right?
Okay.
That means you're just not doing your homework. And I mean that with all love and respect. And I appreciate you being here, but I'm going to be honest about this stuff. I can't sugarcoat shit. It's not how I do it. So if you ask a question, I'm going to give you the answer, and I don't mean to personalize it.
Well, that makes his question even easier. I mean, if Bret Hart having an awesome run would not have changed Stone Cold and The Rock getting as hot as they did.
Absolutely not. And at the end of the day, none of it would have had any difference one way or the other.
Yeah.
Sorry. You wanted me to end that question or that answer, didn't you?
No, not at all.
I'm trying to read the room. That's all.
No, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be funny. Sometimes we think we know what we're doing and then we don't really. And I had to find out the hard way. I kissed a few frogs in business, and then I found Eric Nichols at Envision Marketing. I feel so strongly about this. I'm letting him use my name as a little forwarding domain. ConradsGuy.com is where you can go check him out. He really helped me grow my business digitally. And if your business is trying to do any SEO or pay-per-click or targeted display or streaming video on Hulu, YouTube, Amazon, if they're doing any of that or want to, ConradsGuy.com can hook you up. Eric just wants to take a look. These guys have decades of experience, but most importantly, I trust they're staying on top of the technology and they're optimizing my campaigns. We've all heard people talk about the algorithm. Well, this is their full-time job. They're staying on top of that on your behalf. You already have a job. You need to focus on your business. Let them focus on getting you new leads. That's really what it's all about. And I'll be honest, I had no idea how to do digital stuff like this. I mean, I knew that I needed to have some online presence, but I didn't really know what to do. So I called my radio and TV rep. That was just a bonehead move. Yes, they took my order and yes, they took my money, but I got no response. But once I found Envision Marketing Consultants, my leads went up. My understanding of what I was buying went up, and my overall understanding of the space went up. I highly recommend that you spend just a little bit of time with Envision Marketing Consultants right now at ConradsGuy.com. It's ConradsGuy.com. It's a fast and easy form, and let Eric and his team get your digital marketing on track. Envision Marketing Consultants, where smart but simple marketing drives results. So, Eric, let's do a few more questions here. Michael wants to know your thoughts on RVD and his talents. I feel like his skill set was one of the best of all time. Do you think other wrestlers were jealous?
No, I don't think that at all. I think there were wrestlers who were uncomfortable working with Rob because his style was so unique and it was something that they weren't used to. They get thousands of reps with, a lot of the same moves that you see over and over and over and over and over again. And as great as those moves are, they're still sequences in individual moves that many of those talents have done thousands of times. So it's just natural almost. It's almost a reflex. It becomes so second nature until you wrestle someone like Rob, who does some really odd things that comes at you from different angles that you're not used to seeing. So, and I've seen it up close and personal. Not I've never been in the ring with Rob that way, but I've in TNA, I think he knocked out Abyss's teeth with a spin wheel kick. Actually, is what it was technically. I don't know what the wrestling move for it was, name for it was, but yeah, I saw it. It happened. Most of the time, it looked really great. But if your timing was off, if you're in the ring with Rob and your timing was off, or you don't react because you're just not used to seeing things coming from different angles, it happened occasionally. So everybody was aware of that, not in a way like they were afraid to work with Rob, but it's like everybody understood you had to be on your game, keep your eyes open.
Kevin says, was Eric in TNA when Bully Ray turned heel and fans threw trash in the ring?
I wrote it.
Do you guys think there was an effort by security at Elimination Chamber to discourage throwing trash when Cena turned?
That's a good question.
Yes.
I would imagine at the level that WWE is operating at, when you get that big and you have that much liability and potential liability for all things that happen under your watch that you're producing, I think every step is taken to minimize anything that can happen at every event. So I can't imagine there was a lot of beer bottles and cans. I think most everything was in paper cups. I don't know. Every venue is different, but as I'm sitting here thinking about this, every time, like I went to see the Rolling Stones. Well, I didn't want to keep running back and forth, for 12-ounce bottles of beer. So I was with my brother, my sister, and my wife. So I went up there to get, 6 beers. Well, they put them in like 24-inch paper mugs. It was like half gallon of beer. But I didn't see any bottles. So I don't know. To answer the question, I don't think there was any special consideration. I think generally that consideration exists and people are very careful about allowing things in the arena that can be used as flying objects.
Great question here from Jersey Jenkins. Cena is now in the Guinness Book of World Records for longest face run before turning heel. The only other person I can think of beating that record is Ray. Would you pull that trigger? Are you interested in Guinness Book of Records in wrestling, Eric?
Just absolutely not. I didn't know there. I mean, I know of the Guinness Book of World Records, I guess, but yeah, no, I just wouldn't even think about it.
Mr. Whisper says, I'm wondering what was your impression of John Tenta as a talent when he came to WCW? He started off hot, working with the top guys, but fell down the card as time passed. What do you attribute this to?
Evolution of the audience and taste. It was, for the longest time, we talked about it earlier in the show, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, the big man, larger than life characters. That was where the money was. That was the center of the professional wrestling universe, was larger than life characters, physically as well as their personifications. That started changing when John got to WCW, very, very early on. Contrast Tenta and Goldberg. I don't know how their times overlapped or if they did, but that's the direction that we got there late, to be honest. That evolution started happening in movies. That's where it first started. It's when characters first started really changing. And when the baby faces became kind, yeah, he's a baby face, but he's got that fucking dark thing going on. Most, people don't always see it, but it's there. You can explode anytime. That character with a baby face with a dangerous edge is what started to happen in movies. And WCW caught up to it relatively soon, but late in the game, as far as movies. And we started trying to become more reality based, not abandoning everything else, but trying to gradually become more reality based, where our focus was, our prime focus. And then that really took on a new life in the late 90s and then certainly into 2000s with WWE when they moved over towards the Attitude Era and everything started to become more realistic. So what do I think of John? I think in terms of his career at WCW, I wish it would have been a few years earlier when that type of character presentation was still popular, like it had been. Because by the time John came into it, the audience was getting tired of that. They were looking for something different.
Well, we've been looking for something different tonight. And we've got a bunch of questions, but a lot of suggestions too, like this one from B40B40. How about heel Hollywood Hogan as Cena's advocate? I don't see him doing anything with Hogan, and you said you may get a call. Let's move on. Lewis wants to know, does Russo deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
I don't go there. First of all, deserve based on whose opinion and why. I mean, we all have them, and every one of them is valid. So I hope he does. I hope he gets it. Hopefully, it'll make him feel better about his time in wrestling. I know I've never heard him say it, but I've heard other people say he said it. So it doesn't mean it's true at all, but that he has a pretty bad taste in his mouth about wrestling, which is really unfortunate. It's however he feels misunderstood or mischaracterized or judged or whatever, he still had a pretty good run. He got to do some pretty fun shit. He got to do things that most people don't get a chance to do, and he probably made more money than he's ever made in his life. So I understand it didn't go the way you want. Trust me, I know that. But hanging on to being miserable about it is just making it worse. So maybe that little nod from WWE will make him feel better about life.
Lewis has a follow-up and says, Eric, if the WWE asked you to induct Russo and Cornette in the Hall of Fame, would you do it? And how much would they have to pay you to do it?
I wouldn't do Russo because I couldn't do it, honestly. I just couldn't. And it's got nothing to do with money. I just couldn't do it for any realistic amount of money. Now, if there's like 7 figures involved, I can be an active motherfucker. And I could be believable. Worth every penny. But barring something absolutely absurd as that, I wouldn't do it. Cornette, I think would be fun. I think that it's never going to happen, right? So let's be real about that from the get-go. It's never going to happen. But if it did, damn, that could be fun. Be entertaining as hell. But
King of Games.
That what I do for free.
King of Games wants to know, if Vince asked you to be a part of a new promotion, would you be interested? What role would you see yourself in? Would you be creative or a GM?
No, I've come to realize over the last, really since 2019, when I stepped foot in the water again, and the way it worked out, it is what it is. I was given an opportunity. I didn't capitalize on it. No harm, no foul. Still have a lot of respect for what Vince accomplished professionally. Still have a lot of friends that work there. I have nothing but a great taste or feeling and all that about WWE, regardless of how it happened. But I've had a time to really think a lot about that. I still think about it from time to time as it applies to choices that I'm making now. I go back to, what was my motivation? Why did I take that job? A lot of the answer is pretty obvious, right? It was financial. But it was more than that. It was much more than that. And it was an opportunity to kind of get back to something that I felt a real strong connection to. And there was a lot of money. So that was the motivation. The red flags I didn't pick up on because I was so excited. A, it was a lot of money. And B, I was really excited about getting back to something that I knew I could sink my teeth into 24/7, kind of immerse myself in and enjoy. When I got there, things were so much different than I thought they would be because I didn't ask the right questions when I was interviewing with Vince. Because actually it didn't matter. I would have taken the job anyway. Honest truth. I was so excited and the opportunity was so good. The timing was so right that it didn't really matter how we would have answered the question. I would have taken the job anyway. Straight up fact. What I wished I would have done in retrospect, even though I'm grateful for that opportunity, is ask more questions. I never knew what my job was. I knew what the official title was. Had no idea what the job was. Had no idea what Vince was looking for. Forget about Eric Bischoff in that role with that title. The title was executive director. Theoretically, the conversation going into it was essentially a showrunner in the TV industry. An executive director at that time would have been considered a showrunner. In fact, I made that point when Vince was trying to explain it to me. I used the term showrunner specifically to make sure I understood the job as he explained it. And I was kind of excited about that because I knew what that meant in a general sense and being basically overseeing every aspect of the show, starting with creative. When I got there, it was apparent to me that was not my job. I was a part of that process in some odd way because there was an official title, but there was no real there in terms of day-to-day, things I was attempting to do other than, at that time, because of the premiere on Fox, we were splitting the teams. We were splitting the talent. We were splitting the writing teams, and we never knew. Paul Heyman had Raw. I had SmackDown. Neither one of us knew on any given week who our writers were going to be for the next 2 weeks because they were constantly, Vince was shuffling them. Let's try it this way. No, it's going to be every week we'd have a meeting. Okay, what are we doing? How we split up the writing teams? Well, this is what we talked about last week, Vince. Okay. And then we'd sit, he'd stare at it and then say, no, let's move this guy over here. Let's move this woman over here. It's like, okay, let's go do that until next week. So it was, and again, there was a lot of other things going on. My ability to transition into that culture, which is a really different culture for me. I mean, I had worked at Turner. That was a corporate environment. WWE was really more well buttoned up corporately than Turner was when I was there. Protocols, processes were more complicated, more bureaucratic. And learning those processes and the people involved in them was a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose, as they say there. So all of that was going on, but at the core of it, I realized that I made that decision and moved my wife and my dog to Connecticut and took that chunk out of my life because I made the decision based on the wrong reasons. And I realize now that there's nothing I can do in professional wrestling that's ever going to bring me fulfillment. It's just not, because I've done it and I'm proud of what I've done. And unless I could do something that could make me feel as excited as I felt back then about professional wrestling, I can't do it. So long-winded way of saying, I just don't have that desire to focus on that business any longer for Vince or anybody else. It's just, if I took a job like that, I'd be taking it for the wrong reasons and probably end up having the same results that I did in 2019. Because the real answer is I'm really just not interested enough to commit that much to that industry. as much as I respect it and I'm grateful for it, that period of my life is in the rearview mirror, and I enjoy every time I look in the rearview mirror and see it.
Demons Row says Brett was a Plan B champion, never was a Hogan. Without NWO, there would be no Stone Cold. I feel like they speak on the NWO from a YouTube perspective. You had to be there. Respect to the OG Eric. Eric, we ran through a bunch of questions today, but I would like to hit two more before we put a button on it. Travis Medway says, Brett was a heel in the U.S., a face in Canada, and it was done great. I wonder if Cena could play pretend babyface to kids, treating them naively, mugging them off, playing ironic while pissing off the adults. That's interesting. Could that be done, Eric?
Anything can be done, man. With the right ideas, with the right imagination. There is nothing that can't be done with the right imagination. But this would be really, really hard. This would be really hard. And it would be really, really risky. So I don't see it happening. But it's an interesting. But Travis, you're just on fire tonight, brother. You're coming at me with some deep shit. I love it. Cool.
You're going to like this question from Chad Weaver too, Eric. He says, good evening, gentlemen. Mason City, Iowa here. Eric, if you could go back and change one thing from your WCW days, what would it be and why? So yeah, you're going to make one change, one pivot. What would it be?
Nothing positive. I mean, I would have left in 1998 when the idea first entered my mind. Because it was my instinct. I am not the smartest person in the world. Trust me on that. I probably have a very average IQ. I've had some unique experiences and opportunities, which are an advantage, but I'm about as average of intelligence as you can get. But I don't know. I think everybody can figure that one out.
Well, we're going to cut it off there. We realize we've got a handful of questions we didn't get to. If we didn't get to your question, stay tuned because we're going to do Hangover and we'll do it again next week. So stay tuned. We're going to be live on YouTube next week, taking your questions. We're going to save some of these and we'll start with those right at the top of the show. So don't miss us the next time we're live. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications bell. And we're going to be back next week right here. In the meantime, and if there's more month at the end of the money, you need to go to savewitheric.com. That's where Eric can help you out, show you how to skip your next 2 house payments. That's right. No payments in April or May. You're done until June 1st. And come June 1st, you're going to have a cheaper monthly payment. We're routinely helping our listeners go ahead and reorganize their debt. Said differently, you've got more equity in your house than ever before. And I bet you've also got more credit card debt than ever before. Well, that combination is allowing us to help families save more than $1,000 a month. Earlier this week, we helped a family save more than $1,400 a month, and they got to skip their next 2 house payments. They got a better rate. They got a greater tax deduction. They got a cheaper monthly payment. And if they take that $1,400 a month that they're saving and apply it to the principal, look how much faster they're going to get out of debt. I'm just saying it's worth a look. Let us run the numbers. Find out how much money you can save for free. And here's the deal. If we can't save you money, we won't waste your time. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewitheric.com. Eric, let's put a button on this week. Anything else you want to talk about as we bring this episode to a close? Anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I thought it was kind of exciting. We saw the news today on social media that WWE is putting WCW up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. I'm excited to see that. It never ceases to amaze me when I do conventions and I have a 12-year-old kid come up to me, a little boy, a little girl, said, "Oh man, I love your stuff in WCW." What? No? How could that be? And inevitably, they're finding this stuff on Peacock. And I think opening up and having it on YouTube, it's just going to keep a lot of great history. Forget about me. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio's early matches, Steiner brothers at the top of their game, early Harlem Heat, Vader, one of the biggest big men in the business, Flair, Hogan, Steamboat, all that good stuff. And to have it so easily accessible on a platform almost everybody's familiar with around the world is just cool. It's cool for the families of guys who are no longer here, and they get to go back and watch their family members, in some cases, perform, friends, in my case, yours. So I think it's a really cool thing. I'm excited about it.
I can't wait for us to talk more about it. I'm ready to pick this up with more questions next week. We're doing it live. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell, and we'll see you next week right here at 83weeks.com.